Okay, thank you for attending the Cloud uh, Security Essential course. Now we will continue the training session and we start the module one. Module one, it will cover the architecture, concepts, and design requirements. And this, it will cover the following topics: the cloud computing, cloud services, security concepts related to the cloud computing, design principles of security cloud computing, identity trusted cloud services, and the cloud architecture models. Let's start with the first one, which is the cloud computing definition. What is cloud computing? And this cloud definition is very important because out of this definition, we will understand some very important basics and principles for the cloud services, which we will go through it one by one. When I really ask for your attention because this is important and I hope that it will be clear for all of you. Cloud computing is a model, for enable on-demand network, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computer resources that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. What is the cloud computing? Cloud computing is very simple. Cloud computing, it is a shared resources pool. We are shared with multiple customers and we are able to access it through a network. And this, it can be rapidly provision these resources, and we can release the resources as quickly as they want without interaction from the service provider, cloud service provider. And this, it will be very easy in assigning or provisioning these resources through an API, which it will be in the form of a web browser interface, which you will be able to define some services and hardware configuration. As we can see from this definition, we can understand some very important concepts for the cloud. Number one, on-demand network access. Like this, you will be able to access your resources on demand when you require. And this, it will be through a web or maybe a client, maybe internet, maybe private connection, tablet, mobile, Mac, iOS, desktop with Windows, whatever it is. And of course, it has a shared resource pools. It has a shared processors, memory, storage, other devices and hardware as a load balancer or whatever, any hardware which you can think about it, or it can be hosted in the data centers, on-prem data center, you can host it virtually on the cloud. It can be rapidly provisioning. Yes, of course, because I'm quite sure that you are familiar with the method. How can you uh, provision servers or any services over the internet? All what you have to do that you have to open your browser, enter the URL of the management can of your cloud service provider. You will say that I want a server with 4 processors with 16 GB RAM, the operating system APD, Linux, Windows server, Windows desktop, whatever the operating system which you require, and this, it will be very easy, and you don't need to involve the cloud service provider or even your management in the provisioning of the server, and within few minutes you will have the server up and running, and you can upload your applications on the server and start your job within less than an hour. This is the version. It's from the NIST SB 800-145. And these are the concepts and the characteristics of the cloud, which we spoke about it, that it's on-demand self-service, as we explained that you are able to provision your service over the internet. Broad network access, even if it's the devices which you are accessing from as a desktop, notebook, tablet, mobile, whatever the operating system, it's Mac, it's Windows, iOS, Android, even the network media, it can be the internet, or it can be any private connectivity, or maybe LAN or WAN connection. Resource pooling, as we highlight, rapid elasticity, and this is very important characteristics for the cloud, because the rapid elasticity, it's related to the possibility of your services that it can increase the resources assigned to you. For example, let's have an example to understand the idea that you have a normal server, or let's say you have two servers and we are hosted in a cloud service provider, and these two servers are able to run all your website traffic, which can reach to 1,000 users daily. And the traffic, it's load balanced between the two servers by a link load balancer. Make a marketing campaign, and you will provide additional discounts for your customers, which it can reach up to 50%. And you are expecting that the number of the daily visits for the website, it will be 2,000 users instead of 1,000. This means that the number of users, it will be doubled, and consequently, the number of the resources, it will be need to be increased as well. You have multiple ways here for this design. You can define for in the cloud service provider configuration that if the traffic it's 1,000 user as normal, then it still utilize the normal resources which you are using as daily in your daily operation. But if the number of the users start to increase, then the cloud service provider automatically, and I am repeat again, this it will be done automatically, but there will be another server. It can be added to the your infrastructure. Then as a total, you have 3 servers, and if you need, it may be 4 servers, and these 4 servers, it will start to handle all the traffic for the 2,000 users. And after the campaign, and after you finished your discounts, the number of users, it come back again to 1,000 users. Then all the resources which it were provisioned for you as a 4 servers, it can be go back again into 2 servers. And by the end of the day, you will pay only for the servers which you already use it. And this it can done automatically in the background. But if you have, for example, on-prem data center, this means that you have to buy servers, you have to keep it ready, and after the period of the discounts, this means that this server it will be stay idle, and there will be no benefit from its usage. In this case, you are not throwing your money, you will pay only for the resources which you use in the cloud service provider. Measured services, again, this one of the characteristics of the cloud computing. This is very important. Why? For multiple reasons. Reason number 1, for performance, to evaluating your performance. To evaluate your performance and the service level agreement with your cloud service provider. For example, if you have a service agreement with your service provider, it states that the availability of the service, it must be 5 nines, or in other words, 99.999%. When this means that the service and the availability should be measured, then you will be able to make sure that the SLA requirements are achieved. You may say that you want the processors to be maximum load 75%. Then if it reached to 90, then automatically another processor should be added, or another core of the processor should be added, when it will provide additional process power for your activities. When number one for measured service, it will be the performance and ensuring that the service level agreement conditions are achieved. Number two, as we mentioned before, that all the resources which you are paying for it, it's based on your usage. When they have to measure your usage, then they will be able to issue invoice as per your usage for the resources. Also, it will be used, the measuring services, it will be used for the capacity measurement process, to understand the needs and requirements of the customer. When we have to make plans for providing the services and the resources required on time and in future. When today, as we mentioned before, we had a customer, he leased 2 servers, and after some time he required another 2 servers. It's nonsense that the cloud service provider to tell him that these resources are not available. This means that we will lose business. The last characteristics, it is building blocks technologies, and with which we call it that you have in the cloud service provider processors, storage, you have memory, you have hardware devices as link load balancers or server load balancers, and so on. All these devices, it can be provisioned, and you can lease some of these services which it can help you in your daily operations. In module number 1, we will highlight a very important component, which is called the cloud services. What are the cloud services? In cloud services, in the cloud, we are providing three main services. And I'm quite sure that you know them, but anyway, we will highlight this in details in the next slides. This slide will show you the difference between the different services which are provided from the cloud service provider, and if you have on-prem data center. If you have on-prem data center, as you can see, these all the components which it will be under your control as a customer. You will be responsible for managing the network, the storage, servers, virtualizations, operating systems, middleware, runtime, data, and applications. These are the components which you have to be responsible for and manage it. And of course, it will be a headache, and it will cost you money. You must have a data center. This data center, it should have the facilities as power, AC, CCTV, guards, security, cabinets. Also, you must have the components as a technical components, and beside all these cost, you have to care about the operations and running all these services their daily operations. If we start with the cloud service provider, and we have the IaaS, infrastructure as a service, it will be splitting the responsibilities from the on-prem into half or maybe less of the components, that it will be managed by the cloud service provider. The cloud service provider, he will be responsible for monitoring and handling the networking components, storage, servers, virtualizations. And this means that it act as you are going to the cloud service provider and to ask him for some servers, and these servers should be connected to the network. You are not caring how it's connected. You are not caring what are these servers. Only thing which you are care about that is the servers must be connected over a network. Each server must have specific number of processors, a specific size of memory, and specific size of storage. Whatever any other component above this level, it will be under the responsibility of the customer. When the customer have to upload the operating system, it may be Windows, Linux, or whatever, and the applications, middleware, the data, and he can start his operation. When in IaaS, he rent servers. And these servers are connected over the network. Then when we come to the second capability or the second service, it will be the PaaS, which is platform as a service. Platform as a service. In the PaaS, the same components which are released from the cloud service provider, it will be the same as in IaaS, but they have to be responsible for other three components: the operating system, middleware, runtime. Why? Because this, it will be considered that you are telling the customer, you are telling the cloud service provider, thank you very much, just I want you to help me to develop our application. Then he will tell you, okay, if you want to develop the application, there is no need to take only the servers. You can have also a platform or a language or programming language, which it can help you to make the necessary programming and the libraries, the DLL libraries for Windows, for example, or whatever for any other operating system, and so on. When all your responsibility that you start to develop the applications, you start to develop your application, then you will be only responsible for the applications and the data, the application which you will develop it and the data. But what about the programming language, the operating systems, the server, the network? This, it will be under the responsibility of the cloud service provider, and this, it would save a lot of money. And all what you have to pay, it's a license for the language for the programming and the middleware and the runtime and whatever any utilities it will be utilized for the programming. Then we will come to the last service, which it can be provided from the cloud service provider. It is the SaaS, and the SaaS, it's considered software as a service. In the SaaS, it will make life very easy for the customer, because the cloud service provider, he will be responsible for everything. There is no need to care about servers. There is no need to care about networking. There is no need to care about products. There is no need to care about anything. Whatever any service, application, hardware, software, it will be required from the cloud service provider. And for example, you have to say for the cloud service provider, I want CRM application from Salesforce. I want the Office 365, all these applications are well known, you are familiar with it, and we want to utilize it in our organization. But even you don't have at all a data center in your company, you don't have a data center at all in your company, all what you have to do, that you have to pay a license every month for each user to utilize all these services. Then whatever any new service you needed, you have to call the cloud service provider to provide it to you, and within few hours you will be able up and running these applications and these services as well. Now in the cloud, you will hear about this XaaS. This is called everything as a service. Here we mention IaaS, and we mention PaaS and SaaS, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. In the cloud service provider, we are saying XaaS, everything as a service. Virtually, whatever any service you are hosted on in the on-prem data center, it can be hosted in the cloud service provider. It may be a collaboration tool, it may be applications, it may be IP telephony, whatever any, because by the end of the day, the cloud service provider is considered as what? It is, by the end of the day, the cloud service provider is considered as a data center. When whatever any information or software or application or services which are hosted in on-prem database, it can be hosted in the cloud service provider. Okay, well, what are the cloud service capabilities in the IaaS, infrastructure as a service? And this one, which we mentioned that you are leasing some hardware devices, servers, network, and so on, with scalability. And I think this is very clear that if you want to increase or make upgrade vertically or horizontally, when we say vertically, this means that you can update the resources of your server, including processors, memory, storage, or you can increase your services horizontally by increasing the number of the servers and the traffic. It can be load balanced by using a link load balancer for these new created servers. Also, cost of ownership of physical hardware. You are able now to change the capex into opex, all the capital expenses into operation expenses. And just I want you to take care about something here which is very important, because in some situation, after we make the assessment, we found in some countries that the capex, it may be less than the opex. And yes, I mean what I'm saying, it's not a mistake that the capex, it may be in some situation or some countries, it may be less than the opex. Of course, the capex, we mean that this is the value which you have to pay to buy the server. For example, if you want to buy a server on-prem, when on-prem you want to pay to buy a server, the server, it will cost, for example, let's say $15K US. And when you went to cloud service provider, he told you that the server, it will cost you, for example, $200 or $250 per month. Then this means that per year it will be almost 2.4K. It will be 2.4 K US dollars. 200 times 12, it will be 2.4, or it may be 3K. Let's say 3K, for example. Then 3K US dollars per year. And if you are doing the depreciation for your software or hardware within 5 to 7 years, then this means that if you multiply this by 7 years, you will find that it will cost you 21K. Then in this situation, to buy on-prem, it will be better and it will be cheaper. In this case, in some organizations, they may decide to say, okay, when the on-prem, it will be cheaper. And the CapEx, it will be cheaper. This is a scenario, but just I have a question. Do you agree about this scenario? Do you agree about this scenario? Yani in this organization, which we are saying that the on-prem, it's 50K, and CCS and the cloud service provider, it's only 21K within 5 years, then it's better to go for on-prem. Do you think that this is a right scenario, or we have some other factors which we missed, or what's your opinion on this case? Just I will give you 1 minute to think about it, and I will receive your answers. And the 1 minute, it starts from now. Okay, thank you. Cannot hear anything. Yes, because I was muting the sound. As I said that I will give you 1 minute silent to think about the question. Okay. What's your opinion now? Can you share with me your opinion, please?
We have very less factors to decide on this actually. We have given just operational and capex.
Sorry, can you repeat again?
No, this is we have too many factors to consider. What we have
What
is
are
very
these
few
factors?
details. For example, if you say on premises, you calculated only server cost. Apart from that, power, cooling, space, and then labor charge. Like this, there are too many other factors out there, right?
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any other opinion?
Yes, we have rapid elasticity that we did not consider.
Sorry, I cannot hear your voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we have other factors like rapid elasticity, the ease of accessing or ease of provisioning the resources and all that. We did not consider all that. We are just considering the cost of the servers only here.
Okay.
So this is so we cannot
Okay.
decide only by considering these two factors.
Okay, excellent. Any other opinion? Please, just let's work together. Share your opinion. There is nothing called right answer or wrong answer. Yes, Abdurrahman, go ahead. Please go ahead without raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. For me, I believe that picking up the service depends on the industry itself. So sometimes maybe that company does have, let's say, a cybersecurity department, for example, and they don't need to take it as a software. They can take it as an industry, as an infrastructure, as a service. So they can manage it and they can access a certain amount of privilege they are not allowed to access when they are using it as a software, as a service. And that depends also on the budget.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Any
there are
other
many
opinion?
factors.
Okay, go ahead, Abdurrahman.
I'm done.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, we
Okay.
also need to consider regulatory compliance related issues before going for this on-prem or any on cloud.
Okay, okay. I think you, gentlemen, highlight very important points. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your input because all what did you say is right and it should be considered. And what you highlight, it's very valid reasons that this exercise which we did it's, I don't want to say wrong, but it's not accurate. As you mentioned that this we missed, as Kumar, he mentioned that we missed some important factors which we have to take it in our consideration. Let's have a detailed discussion about this point. Okay, I totally agree that the on-prem, it's 15K, cloud service provider, it's 21K, then the on-prem, it's cheaper. Okay, this from the first glance. But if we have detailed information, that we have the server, then in this server, what do we want? We want to have daily operations. We want to have security agents, security malware, firewalls, IBS, and so on. We need to have also backup and recovery. We want to have a backup and recovery services for it. Don't forget a very important issue for support license. This support, it should be paid every year or maybe every quarter, every 3 years, whatever the value. And I am quite sure that there are, and also, for example, redundancy. Because if you are having one server with important application and you don't want this server to be down, then you may to provide a redundancy. Then now we have 3, 4, 5 factors, and I'm quite sure if we will think about, we will get more and more factors which we missed in this calculation. How much the operations it will cost me? How much the operations team we are receiving per month, and how many persons are being responsible for this server. This server, it's not just a hardware. It has an application. It may has a database. It may have operating system, of course, and all this stuff. And these are required operations and maintenance. Even if it's small amount, but even if you say, okay, this it will cost $10 per day, when by 1 month it will be $300, that's fine. Then by the end of the year, it will cost you about 3.6K. It will cost you 3.6K. Again, the security agents. What about the firewalls? What about IPS? What about the malware? And all the, if you have any whitelisting agent for applications, these are money. You have to take it in your consideration. Backup and recovery. I will not speak about it because I'm quite sure you are aware about this. Even if you will have a very basic backup and recovery procedure to back up the data on external hard disk, it requires operations. It requires to have 2 or 3 hard disks on shelves. Then you will be able to copy the data, and when the data it will increase, you have to increase the number of the hard disks, and you have to increase the operations, and this it will be a headache because you have to get the service down during the backup and so on. The support, you have to pay some money for the manufacturer, then they will provide you support if the server is down. And this is very important for the organization who are caring about their reputation and about their operations, because if it's down for any reason, you need someone to help you to get this service up and running. Redundancy, just imagine if you have some applications and these applications are important, you need someone to have this application up and running, and you may need to buy another server and keep it standby, when you will be able to get these applications up and running. Then by the end of the day on the prem, it is not only 15K. It's not only 15K. I am quite sure if we made a proper calculations, it will be maybe 25 or maybe 30K. And especially the redundancy, just if you take the redundancy in your account, then just the redundancy, and if we forget about the other factors, then this value it be moved into 30K, although the cloud service provider, it will provide only 21K. And in the cloud service provider, we are caring about all this. I don't have any operation cloud service provider. Security agents, it can be provided from the cloud service provider. The basics agents, it can be included in the $200 or $300 per month. And if you are requiring sophisticated secure solution, you can pay for it. And of course, don't forget that if you are buying some license for your organization, of course, it will be more expensive than buying a license for a cloud service provider. If you are buying 10 or 20 or 30 or even 100 license for your servers, in the cloud service provider, he may buy 1,000 or 10,000 license, which it would be cheaper than the license which you will buy for your organization. Backup and recovery, we will provide the backup and recovery for you. We are not responsible for it, and even the backup and recovery, it will not be in the form of a backup tape, but it can be in a different data center. When if the original or the operational data center is down, the other one it will take over, and the user he will not feel that the service corrupted. within few seconds till the second DR service, it will be up and running. Support, you don't need to pay any support for it. And redundancy, as we mentioned, that the cloud service provider, some cloud service provider, they are providing 5 nines for the cloud service. And by the end of the day, you will find the cloud service provider, it may be cheaper. I am not saying as a general the cloud service provider, it will be cheaper, because I don't want you to understand this. I am not saying that the cloud service provider, as a general, it will be cheaper. It may be expensive than the on-prem, even if we take in our consideration all these factors. Then what I am saying, we have to be professionals. If we want to provide study to our management, we have to explain to them the difference. You have to take in your consideration all these factors. Get a piece of paper, the Excel sheet, put one tab for the cloud service provider direct cost, put the cost for operations, cost for security agents, cost for backup recovery, support, redundancy, and make addition for all these costs and say the total cost of the ownership, this which we call it the total cost of ownership. The total cost of ownership for the cloud service provider services, it will be so and so, and for the total cost of ownership for on-prem, it will be so and so. On on-prem, there are other factors which are very important, that security, of course, regulation, other factors which we will speak about it. This we will cover it later. The last point which I want to mention today, that in some situation, my friends, maybe the CapEx, it will be representing a problem for you. Let me give you a simple example to understand it before we finish our session today. Suppose that I want to buy iPhone. I like the iPhone 12 and I interested to buy this iPhone 12. And when I went to the shop, he told me, okay, if you want to buy the iPhone 12 cash or in terms, I said, okay, how much it will cost in cash? In cash, it will cost 4,500. In cash, it will cost 5,500 Saudi riyal. Okay. And if you want to buy it in terms per 12 year, then this it will cost almost what 300. How much it will be? About 300. Let's say 500. 500 US this monthly. 500 riyals monthly. Well, I told him, but if I paid 500 or even let's say 600, he said 600. If I told him if I pay 600 times 12, this means that I will pay as a total 7,200. Although its original price is 4,500. He said, yes, of course. But because you are delaying the payment, when we consider it as the interest, for us, it will be this difference. When in some situation, some of you will say, okay, to pay 600 riyal per month will be acceptable for me instead of paying 4,500. Although by the end of the year, you have to pay about 30% more, but to pay this small amount every month, this it will be better for your financial situation. And this is the real scenario for the organizations. If you tell them that, okay, gentlemen, if you want to buy or if you want to have on-prem data center, this it will cost you 1 million or maybe 10 million or whatever. But if you want to make this data center on cloud service provider, we may pay 2 millions. But instead of paying this 1 million in cash, instead of paying this 1 million in cash, what we have to do that we have to pay this 2 million, and this it will be distributed over the year. It will be distributed over the year or maybe on 3 years, for example. This will be distributed over 3 years or maybe 5 years. It depends upon the depreciation time. This means that if you will pay every year, suppose that your depreciation time, it will be 5 years, then you have to pay almost, let's say, virtually 0.5 million every year. When this it will be better for you, because this amount, if it will be distributed monthly, it will be better than pay this the amount as one shot. When here the relation between the capex and the opex, here we don't have a right answer. We don't have a right answer related to the opex and the capex. No one here will tell you, oh no, opex it will be better. No, capex it will be better. No, this what you are hearing, it's not right. It depends upon your organization. You may work in enterprise organization, 1 million, it will not make any difference for them. Then they can accept to have 1 million as a payment. This it will be okay, because if they are working in manufacturing or they are achieving 10 million net profit per year, then this it will be okay with them. Some others, they are caring about the cash and the OPEX, it will be a good solution for them. Then you have to understand your organization. You have to make a proper assessment. You have to understand all the factors which it will affect the total cost of ownership. But after that, you have to check with your management. What is the best situation or best scenario for you, which it will fit your needs? According to this, you will be able to choose the right concept.